Hi, this is Steve Gornson. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Six Steps to a Better Business webinar. And today I am going to be sharing our six-step system to growing a successful business that works harder so you don't have to, and you could live more life. You can enjoy more life. So hopefully that sounds good to everybody that's with us here today. You know, time is our most valuable asset. Business doesn't mean busyness. What do I mean by busyness? Right, is like we're running over here to put this fire out, we're running over there to put this fire out, all these different things that are going on, and it's just going from one crisis to another crisis, and we're busy. At the end of the day, we feel that we're tired, we're exhausted, but we're not accomplishing those important things. So it's really how you invest your time. That's really the key to your success. Let's start off here today, and I want you to think about, where is it that you want to be in 1 year from now, 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now? Now, think about where you are now. So, to be able to get there, what do you need to learn? What do you need? Who do you need to become to be able to get there? And you see, the six steps business building methodology that we teach here at Action Coach, or really, it's a process that you're going to learn here today, is there to help you bridge that gap between where you are now and where you want to go. You know, if you've been in business for a while, you know that running a business doesn't get easier. It only gets easier if you get better at business. As you get better at business, it just seems like it's getting easier, right? Why is this webinar going to be different than a lot of other webinars that you've attended in the past? Because I guarantee that you're going to leave here today with one or two actionable strategies that you could start and apply immediately in your business to begin building your business the right way. You know, and it's going to be one or two steps that at least get you started on the journey. But remember, this is about learning the process. It's not about creating those quick fixes. So even though you're going to be able to get a couple of things, it's I want you to get out of here today is the process of what we're going through. And as we go through and we discuss each of these six steps, I want you to think about each step is costing you, or which step is costing you the most. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit with you of myself and why am I here. You know, I've owned and operated the local Jacksonville office, Northeast Florida office of Action Coach for the past 17 years. Backgrounds in sales, advertising, and marketing. It wasn't really until a few years ago that I actually realized why I got into this business. And it really evolves around my dad. And it was virtually as a conversation that I had virtually on his deathbed. And it was the week before he had actually passed away, and he was talking to me about my business and what I'm doing and how I'm helping business owners. And then he started discussing and talking about his business and the challenges that he had. And these are things that he's never opened up and talked to me about. You see, my dad was a World War or a Korean War vet, and he came back, really just had a high school education. He met my mom, started a family, started learning really hard, and he actually got himself a really good position. It was a department store in Chicago, in the famous Maxwell Street, and he was headed up the furniture department of that department store. And so he had a really nice, good job. He was supporting family very well. We bought in a house and moved from the city into the suburbs, and things were going good. But he got bored. He had this entrepreneurial spirit, and he really couldn't sit behind the desk. And I think a lot of us here that I see, we all have that same itch, if you will, right? So he started looking and he started training himself to start this new career, to start a new trade. And then eventually he left his secure job with all those benefits that he got and started his own business. And the business kicked off really well because he was actually really good at his trade, really good at what he was doing. Unfortunate part, it's like he really sucked at running a business. No one ever, everybody taught him how to do the business, but no one ever taught him how to run a business. You know, in the end, he ended up having to file bankruptcy after being in business and struggling for many years and working many long hours where I really didn't get to see much of my dad growing up because he was always in the business. In filing bankruptcy, we lost the house I grew up in. And it was really then it was like hit me as he's telling me this whole story from his perspective that I never heard before. That it's like, this is why I really started and this is why I do what I do, because really no business owner should have to go through that stuff, because every business, whether your family's involved in it or not, is a family business. Every small business is a family business. And your business should just be a tool to give you more life instead of stuck it out of, and so instead of sucking it out of you. And that's really what I'm passionate about is helping business owners really live their dream and build the business that they want, and really so they could have the life that they want. So to get started, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Can I be your coach? We're going to be here for about the next hour or so from now. And I want to be able to be your coach. See, as business owners, we all face this conundrum. We work for ourselves. Many of us got into business the tough way, where they got put out of a job or they didn't like their boss. And so they left and they thought, hey, I'll go and I'll just employ myself. How hard can it be? My previous boss was an absolute idiot. And then after a while, we come to the realization that we're also working for a lunatic ourselves, right? It's that crazy thing that sort of hits us. And, so how many of us, if we knew what we were getting ourselves into when we started our business, would we have thought, hey, no, I'm going to scrap that idea. I'm just going to go back to my comfort zone and just instead of sticking ourselves out there and knowing all the hard stuff that we were going to do. If we knew that up front, we probably would not have started our own business. So a lot of us know someone who's been in business for more than 5 years. Most of us here, I think, as I see, is that are joining us as we get started have been in business. But if you think about it, how many of us that in owning a business are they still in love with it as they were when they started? And a lot of us aren't. And because what happens is that we end up working for the business instead of the business working for us. And it sort of traps us into this cycle. And this is the cycle that we're going to be talking about in how to get the business to work for you. When you come in there and talk about why does business coaching work, is really there's two main reasons. It's the extra knowledge that you gain so you can become better at running a business. Like, as I said before, is running a business doesn't get easier. You have to get better at business. And then the other one is someone there to give you an outside look, from an outside perspective looking in. We get stuck when we're working on our business and in the business, we get stuck in those day-to-day things. And we need somebody to pull us out and to be able to gain perspective and ask us what if, get us to think about our business in a different way than what we are. And I think that's why my company is called Action Coach, because nothing happens until we take action. Too many people just think, just sort of think about it, but never start, and thus never take action to get things done. So we don't become successful by taking these big leaps. It's the consistency of doing the small things every single day in and day out, where everybody else sees us to be maybe an overnight success. It didn't happen overnight. It took many days, nights, weekends of doing those small things that nobody really likes to do. Muhammad Ali, he once said, I hated every minute of training, but I would say to myself, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. And that's what I hope everybody here is going to be able to do. So again, I'm going to ask the question is, can I be your coach for the next hour or so? And at the end, I'm going to share some case studies based on some businesses that have gone through these 6 steps. So I'm going to be going really fast. There's a lot of information to cover here. So please take notes, and we'll go in. And at the end, I'm going to actually share with you a way that how you could take what you've learned here today and then apply it into your business specifically. So as we get started, I want to say the only failure is the failure to participate. Hey, we've all made mistakes, right? So we've all learned from whenever we fall down, we get back up and going ahead and do it. But really, it's once you learn this stuff, you have to put it into action. If you give this stuff 100%, you get 100% back. And it's all based on all this knowledge that you're going to be able to walk away with today. And speaking of knowledge, I want to talk a little bit about learning, because I want everybody that's on here today is to get rid of the I know attitude. Because when we have this I know attitude, what happens is we sort of close our mind to any other perspectives. So what I want us to do is to get rid of that I know attitude. And you see, it's like if anybody's here has had teenage kids, I think a lot of us have. They're experts at it. You sit there and you tell your kid something, and it's like, yeah, Dad, I know. Then they get a little bit older. They're a little bit more polite. They'll just cross their arms and sort of shake their head, and inside, they're going, I know. But what happens is this approach kills the possibility of maybe that you learning something new from this conversation. My goal here today is to get you to think differently about your business, differently how you run it, how you put it together. So whenever you hear, this is not brain surgery. This is basic business principles that you've all learned over your times in business that you have. But I want you, if you've heard something that you've already heard, I want you to say, hey, isn't that interesting? And I want you to sit there and say, hey, what can I learn differently from this? Because what you're going to get out of here today, and what you can expect, or what I like to call, are BFOs. What are BFOs? They're blinding flashes of the obvious. They're that aha moment where our brain makes a connection between two previously known but unconnected bits of information. And now it's boom, they come together and it's like, aha, now I get it. I used to do this and I used to do this, but now when I put this in the systematic order, you're going to say, okay, this is how I need to do it. And that's what I want to get you to walk away with. To get started, we're going to have to start with what's the most important part of our business. The most important part of our business is really, in the most important space, is the space between our two ears, right? It's our success brain. And we all know in business, it's our attitude. Whatever we think about most is what we become and is how we act. So we all know people that will be those energy vampires in our life. They'll constantly drain us and be sucking our energy out of us. Sometimes it's just the business that sucks the energy out of us because of how we think about it. And then there's others that really, when we get around them, they inspire us and they envision us and they give us power to be able to succeed. But the ones that are the energy vampires, those are the ones that we know that they blame others, they come up with excuses, or they might be in denial that they are the problem themselves. See, it's that point that's inside of us that's really is where the success in our failure in our business, in our life goes. So if we sit down and we have an ability to be able to bring our team and suck the energy out of them, or we can enliven them. If we have a team that's always going around and blaming others, coming up with excuses, this is what we end up like. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Not my fault, not my job. We've all heard those things, and it's the same problems that keep popping up, these same fires that keep popping up. So how do we go ahead and how do we create these three little characters, and how do we turn them into an engaged and motivated team? And it's all about starting with taking hold of the oar and being able and starting to be proactive. The first step is being responsible, right? It's just showing up to do the job. Wouldn't we just love people to be able to do that sometimes, right? But we're responsible for our actions. The next level is coming in there and it's being accountable. Being accountable for the results. Not only am I just doing my job, but I understand what the expected result of me doing my job is. And then ownership is that next level. It's really is thinking about how can I improve this process, not just sit there and do it, and just hit the results that are expected. What are the ideas and things that I can come up with that can actively help and build up not only me, the business, but everybody around me? That's the power of the points. And that's where we have to start within ourselves. And how we act is how our team mirrors us when it comes to this as well. So I want you to think about your business as we start this journey of the 6 steps. Is your business driving you, or are you driving your business? And we need to make this mental transition of how to focusing and being in the business every time, all the time, and being able to pull out. Most of us, when we start in a business, we really just have a job. And for a lot of times, for some people that have even will have that job and they learn enough to do their job, they might be in business for 10 years, but they got that 1 year of knowledge that they repeat over 10 times. Instead of having 10 years of experience, they have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. And what happens is every day they're just trying to sit down and say, what can I do to just make sure I pay my bills? What can I do to just make payroll this week, right? And, when we sit down and we look at it, there's a difference between why employees make what they make and why business owners and leaders make what they make, right? When we sit down and we look at it, why do most businesses fail? They say that a majority of businesses will fail within the first 5 years of business. And it really comes down to one simple thing, is burnout. But what causes the burnout are all the different fires that come in. It's the cash flow issues, it's the employee issues, right? It's the customer complaints. And after hearing these things and trying to do the same thing over and over again and get different results, we just get burnt out. We get tired of trying to solve the same problem with the same knowledge that we always have. So if we want to create this business that works without this, a better business, we have to start with understanding what a successful business is. At Action Coach, we have a very simple definition. It's a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you, the business owner. Now, I want to talk about this for a second. Why do I say a commercial, profitable enterprise? Why do I say a commercial, profitable business that works without you? What's the difference between a business and an enterprise? A business is something that still evolves around you. You get your self-worth out of running this business. Whereas as opposed to an enterprise is something that is beyond you. You might be the leader, the visionary of this enterprise, but the enterprise works whether you are there or not. It has all the components. It has a team. It has the systems. And all that is what makes it work and makes it work without you. So how do we get to that simple step? And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to quickly go through and share what those 6 steps are. And then we're going to take the time that we have left, and we're going to go through each of these 6 steps. So the first step is mastery. So the mastery of your business, this is where we're really eliminating the chaos, putting out the fires, right? It's the outcome is really to get a very stable business. We're not concerned about making payroll at the end of the month or paying those bills. Those things are just automatically happening. Right? We understand, and there's 4 areas that we're going to talk about from mastery. And, is money mastery is one of them. If we don't have our product or services priced properly, and then when we get into now our next stage, which is niche, which is the marketing stage of it, and we start opening the doors and start really promoting our business, but we don't have the systems in place or the basic foundation of the business set up, we're going to be running into more chaos. So that's why we have to have the mastery, the foundation of the business set. Then we get into niche. Niche is finding, and marketing is about finding a niche or multiple niches for your products and services. This is where we start being able to create predictable cash flow, understanding our markets and our markets' needs. It's where we start generating cash for the business. And again, why mastery before niche? I said that because if we open the floodgates and get people come in before we're ready to serve them, we're going to run into a lot of problems. So the next step comes from that is now we have cash, is now we invest it in how can we leverage and get more out of the business. And this is where we start leveraging ourselves out of the business and creating more time for ourselves. And there's 4 ways of leverage that we're going to be talking about throughout our time here together. In mastery, when you're setting the foundations, there's systems and stuff that we're putting in there, but these are just basic systems to be able to deliver a product and a service the way that our clients expect of us. Now on this is now we're able to leverage and put in better systems that will now scale, allow us to be able to scale up to that next level. So that brings us down to the fourth step, the team. The team produces your structure for growth. Now you have, with a team in place, you have the ability, if they're the right team, is to be able to take longer vacations. You can trust your team is going to manage your business for you. You start inputting and bringing in a general manager to run the business. So why do we have to do leverage before team? Because up to this point, we're buying back our time in the business. And, this is about, obviously we're going to have team members before that, but this is about how do we start delivering and getting our dream team. If you think about Jaguars, last year no free agent really wanted to come to Jackson. But now we're starting to have a whole new system in place and a whole new thing. We can now start attracting. We now have a team that people might want to play for. So if you want to get the best people in your industry, you need to create a business that will attract the best people for you. And then then we go into synergy. This is where everything seems to be clicking and it's coming together. This is where you begin strategizing your next stage of entrepreneurial activity, whether it's buying another business or opening a second location or start exiting your exit strategy out of your business. Because the final step is the result or the investor or the freedom stage. Right? This is where you're getting passive income from the business, and it takes time and it's your personal growth that now I could start investing in other things, whether it's another business and whatever things that you want to invest in. So really these are the 6 steps to get you to massive results. Let's start with the foundation, right? How do we go from mastery to control? And that is creating a commercial enterprise. That's what mastery is about. Because think about it, what is the cost of chaos in your business? As I said in my opening sort of statement, I was introducing myself as, every business, whether the family is involved in it or not, is a family of business because it affects it. And if we're not managing our finances, it's going to be leading to extra stress because as we grow, there's going to be more financial pressure on our business. So we need to go from chaos to control. And we need to have control over how we collect our money, how we spend our money, how we track our money. And that's really an important thing for us to be able to do. This is setting the basic foundations of our business to be able to grow on. So as I said, there's 4 areas of mastery, and I'm going to sort of go over them briefly to make sure that everybody has an idea of it. All right, so the first one is destination mastery. This is where we start with the end in mind. And I ask everybody here is, what does your business look like when it's done? When I ask that question, a lot of people just sort of stare me in my face and go, what are you talking about when it's done? When your business is done, when it works without you, whether you're there or not. You could still be the owner but be receiving passive income or starting to open a second location or a second opening, getting into another business. But we need to understand what it's supposed to look like when it's done, right? What is your why mastery? I talked about why do I do it? What's the thing that drives me? Why does your business exist? What's the core purpose that you are? Because that really builds upon finding people that believe in that core purpose that you have and want to be able to, and the vision that you have and the culture that you're trying to build. That's where you start building an engaged team. Well, the second stage of mastery, the 4 areas, money mastery, is understanding our break even, our cash flow needs, our accounts receivable, accounts payable. How do we shrink the cash gap within it? Understanding what products and services that we have that are profitable, and making sure our team knows, so we're being able to push these. And most of us that have been in business for a while, this is all basic stuff, that we go into it. But if you sit down and go back and take a look at it, are there any of the sort of challenges and fires that pop up? Are they due to some of these 4 areas that we might have to go back and fix? Well, the next one is time mastery. And I always say is you can't master time. All we can do is master ourselves. I almost like to rename this as action mastery, making sure that we focus on what are the most profitable actions and productive actions that we need to focus on, that everybody on their team understanding what their function and role is, what are the most important things that they need to be doing that day, that week, that month, right? We need to have a mastery over that, a system in there. And that brings us to the last one, is delivery mastery. Is it getting our customers, really in the beginning, it's just what they pay for, making sure it's on time. There's a consistency in how we deliver our product or service. We eliminate those bottlenecks and make it easy for them to buy from us. There's quality mastery, making sure that, is our quality hurting us? Are there bottlenecks that are leading to poor quality? We need to identify where are our customer complaints coming from, because each one of those complaints is an opportunity to fix the bottleneck. And we need to sit down and maybe to really take a look at it, and of all of our complaints, and really take a look, is there a central theme that we're getting from that? Those are the 4 areas that we need to really sit down and focus on. And most of us have been in business for a while, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time in here, but I think that you really need to look at this and go back and say, are any of these areas a cause of problems? Because if we don't have this foundation fixed, and then we try to go into our next level, which is niche, the more business and leads and customers that are coming our way, it's just going to exacerbate those issues. So what is niche? So niche is that commercial, profitable enterprise, right? So how do we create this enterprise that we created, this entity, and now how do we make it profitable? And our definition of a niche is no price competition. And I always like to ask people is how many people sell on price, or really their clients are buying on price. And what we need to do is figure out, how do we switch from selling on price to value? And it's really interesting. One of the things I'm looking at is replacing the windows in my home, and I'm sort of looking at each of these companies and their presentations that are coming in, and some of them just sort of said and emailed me a quote. Another one sat down and talked to me about what's the benefit of doing them, is understanding what my needs are and educating me to the product. Because when it comes down to selling on price, there's 3 major things that we need to sort of look at. And we need to understand this, is that people buy when there's a compelling need is met by a credible solution that offers perceived value. So let's talk about it. So everybody, let's say that, we're in the home improvement industry. And so our leads, we know that people that come to us, whether they want to remodel a kitchen, get new flooring, whatever it is, we know that, okay, they need that. But what is the compelling need? What is the thing that's going to make them want to buy and want to buy from us? Because we know what the basic needs are, but we need to train our salespeople to understand what those compelling needs are. Because then once we understand that, we now tailor our credible solution to them. So we're not trying to sell them, we're trying to become problem solvers and giving them a solution to satisfy their needs. When it comes down to a credible solution, there's 3 things that we need to focus on that needs to be credible. One is our company. The second one is the product or the service that we're offering. Is that credible? And then the third one is you, either the business owner or the salesperson themselves, has to be credible. But most importantly, there needs to be perceived value. Credible solution has to have value. And the main way we create value is making sure that we're focusing on their compelling needs, not just our ordinary needs. And that will help distinguish us between us and our competition. Because if we're just like our competition, then our clients really just sit down and look at us and says, hey, we're a commodity, right? We're just a commodity. I was working with a client long ago that I was able to help take him through the 6 steps, and eventually he sold his business. And his business was non-destructive testing. I mean, to this day, I worked with him for like over 10 years. I really don't know exactly what he did, but they worked in the waste energy field, and they went into these big plants where they burned garbage and they turned it into electricity. So every year he would have to go, him and his team would go in and they'd have to inspect these furnaces and make sure that there's no cracks in there, that's not going to blow up and do it. When they do this, they have to shut down the whole plant. At the other time, there's other service providers that are coming in and doing their thing while the plants are being shut down. But usually what would happen is, okay, after they would be done, and the average in the industry is they would then give them the report with the information and within 2 to 4 weeks afterwards. But when we sat down and they finally realized that the clients don't want the testing. The testing is a pain in the butt to them. What they want is the information where they can make better business decisions moving forward. So by the end, we were able to turn those reports. Once we understood that, is every year we sat down and asked the question is, how can we make a better report? How can we get it out faster to our clients than our competition? And by the time he sold the business, his team would email the PDF of the report to the client before they left. And that saved them a ton of money because some of the stuff that was in the report, they have the other teams that were there, they can now give them that work and get them to fix it right there and then. So they don't have to pay to have them come back. It was allowed him to actually start increasing his prices and really create a really great close relationship with his clients. And that's what we want to do it because that's how we become to innovate. So we need to take a look at what is it that we do? How do we innovate in the mind of our prospects to be able to do it? So in creating our niche, there's 2 things we need to do. We need to create that unique selling proposition. What makes us different from everybody else? Sort of like I explained with the one client, it's that report and getting it to them almost instantly. And I'm actually going to, they're one of the clients I have a case study that I'm going to sort of talk about. And then the actual one is offering a guarantee. Why are guarantees important? Guarantees is a way of taking a look at what are the worst fears that your clients have. If their worst fears were realized, how would you solve that problem? And if you would solve that problem no matter what would happen, put it in writing and make it your guarantee. So the guarantee in itself sometimes should really be driving your vision and the mission of your business. I'm going to come up with an example. FedEx, before they started, they sat down and they saw a need in the marketplace for businesses to get packages and letters delivered overnight. Because some people were doing it, but it wasn't guaranteed. It wasn't, sometimes it was overnight, sometimes there was no process that guaranteed it. And so what they sat down and they said, what do we need to do? There's this market. What do we need to do that we could guarantee that we could deliver a package overnight? So when I ask people, when I'm doing my customer service training and whatnot, we're talking about creating a guarantee, if you will, is I ask them what came first, the guarantee or those systems that would deliver the guarantee. And probably 80% of the people always sit down and say, oh, it was the systems, because having those systems, then they were able to come back into the guarantee. No, it was the guarantee that came first. And that drove the vision of this. That was the whole niche. Their guarantee was their niche in the marketplace. They were the only ones that deliver overnight. And then they had to be able, when they hit market, they had to have that system down and come into place. That's how it comes out. And how do we become unique among the marketplace? When we sit there and we look at this picture, which one of these, if I ask you which one of these rocks are unique, they are all unique. But if I ask you which one stands out, there's only one. So how is it that we go ahead and what are the things that you need to do to be able to stand out in the marketplace? And if you're not thinking about that, if you're not planning and you're not strategizing about that and just always working in the day-to-day details of the business and not thinking about strategy of this, because this strategy is going to drive your business going forward. So let's take a look at the next step when it's coming about when we sit down and we're looking at sales and marketing. Accountants look at sales and marketing as an expense. Why is it an expense? Because in most cases, it is because marketing campaigns don't really cost money and don't really work, right? Because most of the time, because they're poorly conceived. and what we need to sit down. And that's, I know I see a couple of CPAs out here, and I appreciate you taking your time away from tax season to come and join us here. But that's where they take a look at it. So, but if we're going to now looking at our business from an entrepreneurial point of view, it's that sales and marketing. We need to look at that as an investment, because if we sit there and we look at it as an investment, then we're going to take a look at it as, what do I mean by an investment? Is that for every dollar that goes out, we have more dollars coming back into our business, right? And that's true for some businesses, but not for others when it comes to the marketing. And that's because they do two things that no other business really does, and that is testing and measuring, right? What are testing the ads, testing our offers. And what we need to sit down and do is, measure our results, change an activity, what can we do to improve it, and then measure the results. And it's always about sitting down and tweaking of what is it that we need to do within the campaign. But if we're not testing and measuring every advertising and marketing campaign and knowing what those results are, we're wasting money. We're just winging it out the door, right? My clients that have marketing companies and ad agencies, they hate me because I always drive them and hold them accountable. And it's like, what is our cost per lead, right? Because really when it comes down to it, is marketing is math. Right? Probably everybody who hates math that's on this webinar is probably just had this big sigh, right? Because there's two parts of marketing. The first part is acquisition cost. How much does it cost us to buy a lead? How much does it cost us to buy a customer? So when I'm holding marketing companies responsible for what is our cost per lead, that's what they're responsible for, is what can they do to lower that cost per lead. Right? Because let's say the example we have here, we spend $3,000 in advertising. If we got 10 leads, then it would cost us what, $300 per lead. Is that good or bad? It depends on what you're selling. If you're selling pencils, one pencil at a time, it's probably a pretty poor marketing acquisition campaign. But out of that, we know that we close 50% of our leads that we get. So now we paid $600 per lead. For some businesses, that's really good, right? Some of them, it doesn't. It depends then, but part of it comes into the second half of the formula, the second side, and that's our lifetime value. We know that same customer is going to spend on average $6,000 over the next 5 years. That $600 investment just turned into an average of a $30,000 investment. Really, when it comes down to it, is what do we need to ask ourselves on it is how do we lower our acquisition costs and increase our lifetime value? And we can never do that unless we know what those numbers are. And if we don't know what those numbers are, we're just winging it. And I can't remember who told me this, but I love this phrase, is that winging it is not a strategy. All right, so let's take a look at how would we test and measure ads. I've used this example for years. It's an old ad. It's actually a yellow page ad. The basics of advertising has never changed. The only thing has changed is how we deliver the message. So we sit down, and this is what I call a tombstone ad, right? Why is it a tombstone ad? It's got the company name on top. It comes in and it sort of tells a little bit about us. They do web design. We really sit there and look at this. No one knows what this company really does. Okay, so they do web design, they do troubleshooting. What does troubleshooting mean? If my son needs help in shooting free throws, they're going to help him with his shooting because he's got trouble there, right? What's art layout or phone support? Do they also sell phones? Or what's the issues going on? It's not communicated very well. When it comes down to communication is the response you get. So if we run an ad that we're communicating to our prospects and we don't get a response, it's not their fault. We're not communicating correctly. And so as you see, they spend $800 a month, got no confirmed leads. So with an action coach, our coaches sort of sat down and we asked, are the major questions that people ask when they call and ask about your service, right? And so with that information, we then created a new ad. And let's take a look at it. So it starts off with the headline. What are the 5 questions you should ask before hiring a web design company? Well, we now know one thing. This is a web design company. We have a picture of a guy, even though he looks like a used car salesman in this ad. David Ogilvy says that ads that have pictures of people or animals will tend to draw more people to them than just straight ads, just straight text, right? Most people take this for common sense because most people have been doing this for many years. But if you sit down, it's like, do you offer money back guarantee on your design? Yes. You help to market my website? Yes. You offer a guarantee on search engine? Yes. Boom, boom. Okay, these are enough to get them to sort of say, let me get him to come in and take a look at what we had. And they offer a free internet consultation, and boom, it's the phone number. If you remember, what was on top on the other one? On the top of the other ad was the name of the company. And as I preach all the time, is no one cares about the name of your company except you and your mother, right? What they want to know is they need a headline, and the headline is the ad for the ad, is get them to read the rest of the information. What we want to do is create a desire for them to take a particular action, whether it's to come into the store, whether it's to give us a call, whether it's to click on a link, whatever that call to action is, it's the same. And then the name is smaller, the website is smaller, because if you got my attention, I'm going to find that information on the ad. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing. The biggest thing has to be, how do you help me? That's going to attract me to your ad. Does that make sense for everybody? All right, perfect. So let's move on. The thing with this is that got us $16,000 in 6 weeks just by changing the ad. And they went through this and created a whole series of ads over many years based off of this. If you haven't taken any notes from now, this is the part that you need to take notes on right now, because this is going to be the most powerful thing that you're going to learn that will help any business. And we're going to talk about it in a basic form. And then later, if you want to, we can talk about how do we apply it to your specific business, right? So if we take a look at these two cars, we have a VW Golf and an Audi R8. Two different markets, two different things. The only thing you look at them and say, hey, they have in common is they're both red. But no, they're built on the same chassis. And this is, when you sit down and look at it, most people would rather have that Audi in there. But this is really where it sits down and it really gets interesting, because every business is built on the same chassis. And when we sit there and we understand this, we understand how we need to go about and grow our business. So as I talked about, there's 5 drivers of profitability in growing your business. There's 3 things that we know in our business. We know how many customers we have. We know what our revenue is. We know what our profit is. These are all just end results. So the thing that we need to sit down, and this is really where it gets exciting, is what are the drivers? What are the things that affect these outcomes? What I like to do at Action Coach is we break things down to lowest common denominator. So let's put some numbers into it. So when we sit down and we look at this, we have customers, revenues, and profits. Those are in reds. That's our end result. So the two factors of driving more customers is we need to increase our leads or our conversion rate. So everything that we do when it comes to sales training and or marketing have to do with these 2 numbers. Getting more leads, tweaking our ads, is offering a guarantee that could be helping our closing percentage, doing sales. All these things are really in place to just drive these 2 numbers and increase these 2 numbers. So once we have customers, and then we can also sit down and break that down even more, but I'm doing this in a real basic thing, that we can break down where are all the leads coming from and what's our closing percentage from different sources of leads. Where we could have one place then in the lead generation, it's giving us less leads, but we're closing more of them at a higher rate. But that, unless we track this information, we never know, right? We're just winging it. Now, that's what we want to do, is go from winging it to planning it. So now we have customers. How do we drive revenue? Well, the first one is how many transactions? How often does our customers buy from us? Are there services? Are we a one and done industry, or are there things that we could do to get our customers to come back? Sometimes that might be a year or 2 or 3, but what can we do if we're remodeling a house? What do we do for the kitchen? And come back and start talking to them about other parts of the room. But that's through a drip marketing campaign that just gets our clients to come back, because they've already happy with you. It's easier to get them to come back than to find new customers. And then the second time is, what is our average ticket? Is when an average person comes and purchases from us, what is the average sale? Some people will spend $500. Some people will spend $1,000. Some people will spend $30,000. The whole idea that we look at this is the average. And then the last part is our profit margin, which will lead to our profit, right? And then we got net profit and gross profit, but we're just using our basic numbers here. So let's put some numbers to this. So let's say in our small little business, we're getting 400 leads. We close 25% of them. That gives us 100 customers. All right, cool. Now we have each of our customers will purchase from us 2 times, some once, some 3, some whatever, but if the average is 2, each time that they spend with us, they're going to spend $1,000. So we now know that our revenue is $200,000. Our margins are at 25%. So that gives us $50,000 in profit. Is this a month, a year, a quarter? It doesn't make a difference. The numbers still work out. Just follow the formula. As I said in the beginning, my background's in advertising, marketing research. So my clients would always come to me and say, hey, Steve, I need help in growing my business. And so what we would always do is, before I learned this action coach process and system, we would start at the top of the thing, and I would try to sit down and see what can we do to increase their number of leads. So let's say we put together a great campaign, and now over the year we can increase our leads by 50%. So then we know on the averages, we know our averages. So our conversion rate's at 25%. So now we have 50 customers. Okay, cool, right? We got 50% more customers. Our average transaction is 2. We know our average sale is $1,000. So now we've increased our revenue by 50%. Margins are at 25%, and now we increased our profits by 50% in there. Are we happy with that? I would say most people, if you really sat down, the true answer is no. You're really exhausted because you got to deal with 200 more leads. You got to deal with 50 more customers for that amount of money. This is my definition of working hard. So now let's flip the script and let's work on how do we work smarter, not harder? That's my mantra. So instead of focusing on just top of the line, we're going to focus on each of these drivers and see what happens if we increase them by just 10%. So again, with the number of leads, if we start testing and measuring our leads, we go from, instead of 400 to 600, we go from 400 to 440. That's a pretty realistic number. If this is an annual small business, that's like a lead a week, right? Or a lead a day, right? And then again, with our conversion rate, maybe we start doing sales training. We start offering a guarantee. We start making sure that our advertising is targeted better to a better target market. So the leads that we're getting, we're closing more of them. So again, we don't have to increase it a lot, but just by 10%. So it's going from 25 to 27.5%. And I guarantee that if you just measure your closing percentage, you'll probably be able to just almost automatically get that 10% increase, because what you get measured gets improved. So now we go, instead of the 150, we're dealing with 121 customers. All right. But we're also starting a campaign to get our customers to come back and purchase from us more often. Again, not twice as much, but just 10% more. Some of them do, some of them don't, but we go from 2 to 2.2%, right? And the same thing with increasing our average dollar sale, is by increasing it by 10%, you could just do it right now and most people won't notice the difference. Or I was working with an HVAC company and I just asked them the question is, what are the things that you sell the most of that people never think about price? And back then when I was working with them, it was Freon. Because when was the last time you got your AC unit worked on and they said, oh, you need Freon, and you go, oh, how much is that? And it's like, oh, hold on, let me go check and see if I can get a cheaper price someplace. Meanwhile, your whole unit's all torn apart. No, you're just going to say, okay, replace it because I want a cool house in the summer, right? So that strategy, we actually paid for his coaching for the whole year. Because what I did is I asked him, how much do you charge? How do you compare to your competition? And again, he didn't know. So we went out and had his office manager start calling around and just say, hey, how much do you charge for Freon? And they found out that were sort of in the middle of the pack. They weren't the cheapest and they weren't the most expensive. But what we did is I said, okay, what happens if we just go, instead of being the most expensive, what happens if we meet it halfway and just sort of be halfway from where we are now? And that's all it took. There was nobody ever gave him a pushback on that. And that's the most important thing. So now our revenue goes from $200,000 to $292,000. All right, so I get a little bit of my time back. I'm not making some money, but it's almost as close to a 50% increase. But remember, we're also working on our profit strategies. So maybe we're not spending as much on advertising, but it's better targeted. So it's leading to better margins, right? We've increased our prices. So that's a profit margin strategy as well. So, okay, again, from 25, just a 10% increase to 27.5%. So when we sit down and we look at the bottom line now is $80,000. So let's compare these two. So working hard and working smarter. So if we're working hard, we get 160 more leads and almost 30 more customers, right? And it gets us almost $7,200 more in business. It gets us $5,500 less in profitability. And we want to know why we're working so hard and we're not making what we should be making. We're really exhausted. We're working harder, not smarter. Which one would you rather have? And the only way you could work smarter is by testing and measuring, knowing these numbers, tracking these numbers on a weekly or a monthly or at least on a quarterly basis to be able to sit down and take a look at, is my advertising strategies work? Is my sales training work? Because when we do that, that's a 46% increase in revenue and a 61% increase in our profits. You might be asking me, is that possible in my business? And it's like, yes, I've seen it within my clients and action coach clients around the world. So what would you do if you had an extra $30,000 in profitability? Or would you buy a new car, get a nice room with the view? What would you do if you had 300 more hours this year? Because your business is working harder, so you don't have to. Would it give you more time to spend with the people that are really important in your life? That's what we need to sit down and take a look at. Warren Buffett sums it up. It's not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results. If there's baseball fans here, I call it the small ball. We're not swinging for the fences. We're not trying to hit home runs. We're trying to hit singles and doubles and stealing a base and bunting and all the little things that when you add up, it leads to getting a run. Instead of 10 runs in an inning, we're getting 1 run per inning. So this formula is really cool because it also can help us create 10-year projections. What would happen if I increase each of these numbers by 10%? Sometimes we could change it around because maybe you're not going to increase your profit margins by 10% every year, but they possibly could based on efficiencies. But you could sit there and project out how your business can grow over a period of time. Does that make sense? All right, so now we have more cash flow coming into the business. We have predictable cash flow because we're testing and measuring. And that leads us to the third step, which is leverage. Leverage is all about creating that commercial, profitable enterprise that works, right? Now we're talking about putting in systems in the business that will help us take our business to that next level. And some of these systems take a greater investment in there, whether it's a software investment or a variety of different things that you might be able to add in your business, whether it's a better machinery or better technology in your business. And what does system stand for? Is really saving yourself time, energy, and money. If we think about this, most people drove the same way every single day. And what I found when I was driving, it was like, I'm saying people are multitasking. I've seen women putting on makeup. I've seen, obviously people are talking on the phone. We don't want to be texting, but, it's in there. They've got hands-free, but that's still multitasking. We're eating our lunches. We're drinking our coffees. We're doing multiple things all at the same time because we're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So if everybody on your team is doing the same thing the same way, everything becomes more efficient, right? So that's where it really comes into. So let's talk about 9 steps of how we systematize a business. So within that, it starts with a vision, mission, and culture. Why do I need to know that to create a system? If you're talking about the mastery type, foundation type systems, no, not really. But even them, they should really start with the vision, mission, and culture, because this is what those systems are supposed to be driving for. Allows us to live within our culture and our mission and the vision of how we're trying to grow that company. Because once we understand that, the next step is what is our SMART goals? SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic within that time frame. What are the goals that we're trying to achieve that system will allow us to get to? The system is a tool to help us achieve those goals. Next thing is we talk about organizational charts. I like to really call them function charts, is we need to look at our business not by the people doing what, but what are the functions of the business doing. Most businesses are broken down into 3 functions. So sales and marketing, operations, and then finance and admin. So what we need to do is what are the roles of those functions within the business? And then within sales and marketing, you could break it down into there's a sales function and a marketing function, and then you have a sales team and a marketing team. And once each of those functions, the bigger you grow, the more functions that they're having, we need to define what those roles are. What are the roles of who owns those functions, and put together what I call as a positional agreement that has KPIs. What are the outcomes when a person is doing a particular job well? What is the expected outcome? Sales is real easy. You are setting a sales budget. That's simple. But what about a crew that's going in and installing Windows, right? Number 1 KPI is customer complaints, right? Am I creating happy customers? Everybody's job within a business is to create happy customers. But those are things that we could sit there and measure. How many go backs does my team have to do to be able to finish a job, right? Because you want them to finish it as efficiently and as profitably as possible. So the lower the number, the better. And then once we have that, then we create the how-to systems, which are there to drive those numbers, to get those people delivering the results that they want within the functions of our business, which will reach our goals. So we'll be able to, and we do that through our culture and our mission and our vision. But that's not the end of it. You can have these systems in place, but if we don't have if we're not managing these systems, then they all fall apart. There's no one there to hold them accountable, if that makes sense. Now we have systems in place. So the next step that we go to is team. And these are the systems that drive us to help us to start scaling up our business. And we need to have those in place before we get to team, because creating the team is creating that commercial profitable enterprise that works without us. That is what team is about. This is where we're creating our structure for growth. And we need to have those systems in place so we know where we're going to put the people and what are the functions that they're going to own and the roles that they're going to own, because then we're going to make sure that we're putting the right people in the right place. Those people we're hiring based on our culture and our vision, not just on hiring based on can they do a particular job. There's lots of people that can do a particular job, but can they do it in the way you want it delivered with the same enthusiasm that you have for your company and your team. Is Peter Drucker, marketing guru. Most people don't think that this is a true statement, but most employees are motivated, energetic, committed, enthusiastic, and loyal. Most of us won't agree with that, right? Until we hear the last part of his quote, which is except for the 8 hours a day that they work for us. So how do we get those teams? How do we cut out that last part to where they're always a living marketing person for our company? Everybody that works for us is a salesperson, whether they're a construction crew or just doing the particular service. They are the front lines of our business, and they're selling the reputation that we have. And people buy us because of our reputation. So when it comes down to creating this engaged team, there's a cycle of business that we need to sit there. What we find is that most companies, the owner tries to run 3 of these, and they can't get it all done. Start off in a business, and the business owner is focusing all their time on the customers. They'll spend a little bit of time on running the business. Then when they run out of time, they hire a team. but they don't have time to train the team well. So they're going back, and some small businesses come to me and say, Steve, I just want to get rid of everybody and just go back to doing it myself. I don't have to deal with these problems. Instead of spending the time as a business owner, you're not supposed to be involved in the day-to-day business. Your job is to grow your team. Your team will grow your business, not you. And then you support your team by providing training, by providing good wages and benefits and a great working environment for them to go in, and goals and directions. Then the team, their role is to support the customers by being problem solvers, by providing great service, by getting them to just really creating a consistent environment that they understand every time that they come and do business with you, they know what to expect. Nobody goes to McDonald's because it's the best hamburger in the world. They go because they know exactly what they're going to get. They know exactly pretty much what it's going to cost and how clean the restrooms are going to be, right? It's that same consistency every single time. Then the customers now support the business by coming back more often, spending more money when they do, telling their friends and their family about you, right? And then the business is now supporting you through profits and you having the ability to have more time to live your life, to live your dream. So there's 5 keys that we need to sit down and work on when we focus on creating a winning team. First starts off with strong leadership. It starts with you. You will get the team you deserve. And there's a difference between leadership and management. A leader's job is to enroll and inspire the team and get them in the vision. A manager is to make sure that they are held accountable to the results that they want. Creating a winning team starts with strong leadership, but then there's a common goal. The goal is not to help you create a $5 or a $10 million company or a $1 million company, whatever you are. If they hear that goal, that means my job is to make you rich. That's not really a good goal for them. They're not that motivated by it. But let's say if we create a common goal of how do we create the best working environment in Jacksonville, be known as the best place to work in Jacksonville, or what about if we are known as the best in our industry? And right now, one of my clients that I've worked with for a very long time is Earthworks, and they are now having the reputation, as we started off with this goal of being the best, not just the best in Jacksonville, but people from all over in the landscape company from all over the United States come to Jacksonville to see how they run and do things, right? So once we have that common goal, we then set up our rules of the game. That's our culture of how we do things. The next step is our action plan. The action plan is what is it that we do to reach that common goal. Unless you have a common culture and you create the common culture with what I call is success behaviors, your team will drive the culture. And it's not usually in the direction you want to go. So once you have everybody going in the same direction, this is the hardest part for most business owners. And especially when it's time to give over to bring in your general manager, is support risk-taking. In growing a business, it's sort of like, especially when you start a business, it's like giving birth to a child. That child needs our attention 24/7, just like every small business. That business owner needs to be in there and pay attention 24/7. Well, then it becomes a toddler and we have the terrible twos, and we've all know what that means in our business, right? That's our growing pains that we see. And then it becomes a teenager and it starts having a mind of its own. And our job is how do we train them to be productive human beings, if you will, right? How do we train our team to be a productive person of our society, of our business? The hardest part for, I think, a parent is the first day the kid goes to school, whether it's kindergarten or even like for a mother dropping off their baby to a nursery, just giving up that control. You're supporting risk taking. You're taking a risk and saying, this person is going to protect my baby. And then eventually, as we feel that thing, as they go to college, they leave the house and they're on their own, we need to support risk taking, that they're going to be able to do what we've taught them to do and make the right decisions. But if we've never trained them, if we've never put that time and that effort, then there's going to be challenges that will come our way. So the most important thing is the rules of the game, the action plan, support risk-taking, and then we need to make sure that that there's 100% involvement and inclusion. Because if we have one person that going against it that is totally disengaged in the process, they're throwing that anchor out the back of the boat. They're slowing your business down. And it's almost slowing it to the crawl. And you can say, hey, I'm doing all these right things. Why are we not moving forward? And it's that one or two people that we really don't see there in the back of the boat that are just poisoning the rest of the team. The really key thing that we need to talk about is how do we get the right people on the bus? How do we hire the right people? And if I ask you is if you were going to start your business right now, would you rehire the people that you have? A lot of times the answer I get to that is no, I wouldn't hire everybody back. And so the question is why are they still on our team? Well, it's too hard to find it. So we need to find what is the right, not only skills, but what is the right attitude that we need to get them to be on our bus and then find the right seat. If you think about like the NFL, it spends a ton of money on the draft and on recruitment. So one of the ways is the draft is getting new people and then training them within your system and growing them and developing that. So that's one way of developing team members. The other way is through waivers, is who got cut. And so who's out there and who can we bring on to our team now? So it's basically, okay, these are the employees that somebody else fired that you are now going to bring on your team, and hopefully they'll do a better job. Sometimes it works out because they weren't in the right environment. They needed the right environment and to be nurtured to be able to bring up. But then there's free agency. And that's where you go in and attract the best people in the industry and bring them into your business. So we need to create that right entity that they want to come in and being, what is it, the best in the industry? They want to work for the best. And that's why right now Earthworks is now attracting people to come to want to work for them because of the reputation that they have. So before I talked about the employees that are throwing the anchor out the back of the boat, right? That there was a study done by Gallup that 70% of employees are disengaged. And that 18%, almost 20% of our employees are the ones that are throwing the anchor off the back of the boat. And they're totally slowing us down. Then we have the other ones that just show up. They're disengaged. They're not doing anything more than what is expected of them. But only 30% of them are totally engaged and looking at is how do I improve this process? How do I get everybody around me better? How do I improve the company? Imagine if it was 80-20 or 70 or 50-50. How would that change your business? And it's all about how are you creating engagement and culture in your business, because it's really the number one thing, necessity today. Do you want a team that is just loafing around, or you want a really engaged team that is inspiring others? And the thing is, when it comes to engagement, the reason it's so hard is you can't train engagement. Company training is really the least desirable way to learn, especially when it comes down to trying to train culture and engagement, because engagement cannot be trained. It has to be developed. Training is transactional. Engagement is more transformational. We're not just learning new skills. We are becoming more. So really when it comes down to is we don't need more information. What we really need is more action. How do we turn that action into behaviors that we all agree on? And I think that's really the key that we need to sit down and focus on. So that leads us to the synergy stage. This is where we start to be able to duplicate our business. The synergy and results, this is our growth and freedom, gives us everything that we have, right? Up to this point, we are gaining back our time in our business. Now we need to be able to sit down and invest. So let's just quickly go back and review these stages that we had talked about before. So the first step is mastery of your business. This is right, creating and making sure we got the fundamentals set. We're eliminating chaos, and the goal is to create a stable business. We're being a proactive business instead of a reactive business. The second step is finding our niche or multiple niches that are out there for our products and services. How can we create predictable cash flow by knowing our market, knowing our customers, and knowing what their compelling needs are, and what are the solutions that we can find to help them? Then the third step, and we have to do mastery before niche, because if we start marketing and advertising before we have the fundamentals right, it's leading to more chaos. And then we just sort of get trapped in there. It's like we sell more, do more, sell more, do more. And then once we break out of that, we start get rid of those fires in the mastery stage, and we start building up our business. We now have cash flow. Now we can begin to scaling up through the leverage stage. This is where we start getting ourselves out of the business, creating more time for ourselves. Not more time, and we start doing less in the business and more on the business, more strategy development. This is where we start to use those 4 areas of leverage of people and technology and system and distribution and whatnot. Those are the things that we need to be sitting down and focus on. That leads us to the 4th stage, which was team. And the team, as I said, produces our structure for growth. It's where we have now the ability to take time off. One of my clients that I'm going to talk about, before he ended up selling his business, he started taking a month off at a time because he trusted his team and he knew that they were going to get the job done. And that's when he knew that he could decided that he could just sort of be in the business or what he wanted to do. He had the freedom to make that choice. And then eventually it leads us up to, we have this well-oiled machine. We're starting to get passive income from the business. And now we're on that results or that investor level where we could start taking the passive income that we have and invest into other businesses. We could start buying commercial property. So these are the 6 steps to getting massive results in the business. And the question is where are you in these 6 steps? Where's your bottleneck? And sometimes we need to sort of go back. And as a business grows, a business will grow and we'll hit that glass ceiling. And we can get up to that team. And what we find is that we can't really break through if we want to get to a better, grow and scale up. And sometimes we have to go back to mastery and re-look at how we are in the business to recreate our business to be able to grow to that next level, because what got us here won't get us to that next point. And that's where, we sit down and how I help my clients sort of look through and take a look at where they are now and how do we help them grow to that next level. So let's talk about some of these, some case studies and some clients and how I sort of applied what we learned here today. Going back to that one client, non-destructive testing client, I was working with them for 12 years. When I first started working with them, he had been in business for over 25 years. He was just burnt out. When he came to one of these webinars, or back then it was a seminar, he was stuck between mastering niche. He said, if I was to lead the business, basically all I could do is sell my equipment and go fishing. The business was profitable, and he was starting to look for a way out. And again, it had no value to the business because he was in the business so much. So what did we start working on? We started recruiting and developing his team. We identified the key different marketing differences that I talked about earlier. We started helping him to create systems in the business. So there's a consistent, when one team goes to a plant and another team goes to a plant, they're doing the same thing. And if they switch, the client doesn't even know the difference. And most importantly, we created a company culture and aligned everybody to it. And so if they hire somebody and they didn't align to the culture, the team told the business owner that this guy doesn't fit, because they didn't want to destroy the culture and the sort of the family unit that they had created. So what we saw is that we've doubled their revenue and their profit. The owner stopped traveling onto jobs. He actually opened up a new office. When I first met him, he was like, he wanted to get out of his business in 2 years. He got so re-enthused, he actually opened up a second office, started taking time off, and then eventually went in and sold the business itself. Let's take a look. And the other one is a P&C property and casualty company. Been coaching them now for 5 years. They were a small, profitable company looking to grow. Business owner felt stuck. There was no vision of where she wanted to go, and thought that, well, maybe I should be selling the business. And what she needed to be held accountable is focusing on the business instead of always business. And instead of being an insurance agent, she needed to change her mindset to be an owner of an insurance company. So we sort of help her re-energize that vision of what she's trying to create for her business, identified the key functions and roles of the business. So it was easier to help pull her out and figure out who on the team can take over some of those roles and who do they need to hire to be able to fill in some of those roles. Again, aligning the team to the company culture. Same thing's happening when they would hire people that didn't fit that culture. It was the team that let the business owner know. And again, we started creating KPIs for every part of the business. So everybody knew what were the outcomes that was expected. So we increased the profitability of this business. They increased their uninsured motorist policies by 240%, increased their cross-sells by 75%. They started creating standard operating procedures in the business. All these little things, but they don't happen overnight. And then again, she opened up a second location. This is somebody that was ready to leave, and she opened up a second location. So, and then the third one was just another business that was in the home improvement company business. I've been coaching them for 13 years. Their sales were actually started falling because it was a real estate crash. So they needed to be accountable to focus on their business and not. There was no profits when I started. They were actually in the red, poor cash flow, and the business owners were stressing out all the time, working in the business, doing all the selling, doing all the project managements. It was crazy. So we helped them first on how do we find the low-hanging fruit to increase sales to help the cash flow within the business. We started really tracking helping them get them the money mastery and control over their expenses. But the most important thing was aligning their team. Because once they did that, the team started building the business and it took it off of them. And it was the culture that they created that allowed the team to grow. So we then developed systems to increase the profitability and most importantly, the consistency of the business so clients know what to expect from them. So actually, I didn't update this, but the increased sales in 2009 from 1.7 million to $7 million in 19. Actually, it was a little bit more in 2020. Profitability went from a $46,000 loss to over $500,000 in profitability. It was pretty much close to the same for last year in 2020 with the craziness stuff going on. Again, we created those SOPs, we created those fully engaged teams. But all that didn't happen by accident. And it took years to sort of do it. And a lot of it depended on, in the beginning, they were the anchor that slowed it down until they bought onto the system. This client here, most of the changes came over the last 3 or 4 years. And that's when the business owner finally let go and to trust their team and build that up. And then the growth went exponentially high. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what are the results that you should expect from if you go through and you follow this system. And I want to leave you with these 3 quotes. Richard Branson comes in and says, if you learn how to run one business successfully, there's no reason why you can't learn a number of businesses, because every business has the same business chassis, right? I had a client that I worked with bought a business that he never had any experience in, but he hired me because he just wanted me to coach him through those processes of help him do that. He learned the intricacies of the business, but not how to do the business. And that's what you need to sit down and to take a look at is where do you want to grow and where do you want to go within your business? And the more you learn this information is how is that going to change you 5 and 10 years down the road? And then one of my famous quotes from Jim Rohn is never wish your life was easier, wish you were better. You have to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Coach, one of the main things is not only the coaching and the accountability, but it's the business learning process. As my clients that are in there, one of the newer innovations that we had is our founder at Brad Sugars which he created this system, took all of his knowledge of how to do these 6 steps and all the strategies and put it into online training program, which we call 30X. And these are 30 different 30-minute videos that cover each of these different topics within the 6 steps. And within there, at the end, there's always homework. These are the things he teaches you, and then how do we do it? And once we started doing this, it really helped the learning curve and get the knowledge out to our clients so much faster through this. And then at the end, we get our clients to go through this in 30 days. They get a ton of information, a ton of things to do, but then we sit back and say, all right, where are we now? What do we need to start working on? But you have this whole vision and this plan of all the things you need to sit down and get to. Where you are now or where you're going to be in 5 years, it's going to depend on the books you read, people you associate, and the actions you take. So I really appreciate everybody that's been on this webinar. And I guess your third is thinking is, now what? There's really two directions that most everybody here can go on. First one is, hey, Steve, I appreciate all this information. I love it. I'm happy where I'm at, and I got a lot of value from your time, but I'm going to go and do this on my own. I appreciate that. Please share this information with your friends and tell them about us. And then the second one is, hey, I'm not sure. It's like, Steve, can you help me? And so what I want to do is for everybody here is let's first just take what you learned here today, and let's set up a free strategy session, a half-hour Zoom call, just us one-on-one, and talk about what you learned here today and how do you specifically apply it to your business. And we'll focus on the strategies and how to customize them into your business. At the end of that 30-minute session, if you are really interested in sort of saying, hey, Steve, I like what you have to say, how can you help me? We'll set up another meeting at that point, because this meeting is all about you and to help you. We'll set up another meeting where we'll talk about the different coaching programs and the different things that we have and how we can help you and really where it would make best sense for you to go in. So if you're interested in that free strategy session, there's the website right there is strategy-session.com, strategy-session.com. Take that down. It will take you right to my calendar, and then pick a time that's most convenient for you, and it'll send you out the Zoom link, and we'll go from there. And then there's one last thing that I want to sort of share with you is a new program that I started this year. It's a business education, sort of a business mentoring group that I created. It's called the Business Huddle. And I've done this in partnership with Gregory Grant with the Small Business Development Council. The Business Huddle is about where business owners come together to grow. Each week, we take on a different business topic and open that up for discussion. And it's more of a discussion group going back and forth, and people get to learn from each other. There's no cost to be involved in this at all. It's every Tuesday from 11:30 to 12:30. To register and to be part of this mentoring group, just go to bizhuddle.club, C-L-U-B. You don't have to come to every one. There's no really order, but every week you'll get a reminder on Monday and another one on Tuesday morning, the links to come join the meeting, and you're welcome to come as often as you want. So I really appreciate everybody's time in there. If you want to connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, give me a call. Or again, here are the two different websites to join get the free strategy session or join the Business Huddle. And then my website is all, you always, if you get to my website, you could always get to a free strategy session with that as well. I really appreciate everything there. I hope you was able to get a lot of good information from you. I really hope that you'll take me up on that free strategy session. It's just going to be you and me taking what you learned here today and see how we apply it. And you'll get in, and you'll be able to begin to understand the power of coaching. But I really appreciate everybody's time, and really thanks for everybody for joining.